The carriage wheels groaned against the frozen road as Elowyn Ashford pressed her forehead to the frost-bitten window. Outside, skeletal trees clawed at a bruised winter sky, their branches rattling like bones in the wind. She was cargo now. Purchased goods. Her father's final words still echoed in her skull, hollow and businesslike, the same tone he used when selling horses at auction. You should be grateful, Elowyn. Most men wouldn't want damaged merchandise. Damaged. Because she'd refused 3 suitors who'd wanted her dowry more than her. Because she'd dared to have opinions. Because at 22 she was nearly unmarriageable by society's cruel arithmetic. But the blind Duke of Thornwood had no such reservations. He'd paid her father's debts in full, 30,000 sovereigns, without ever meeting her. She laughed bitterly at the irony. He couldn't see her face. He never would. 3 days ago, she'd been summoned to her father's study. Lord Aldrich Ashford sat behind his mahogany desk, a man built from sharp angles and sharper disappointments. It's decided, he'd said without looking up. You'll marry the Duke of Thornwood. The arrangement is already signed. Thornwood? The blind Duke? Elowyn's blood had run cold. Father, there are rumors about that estate. Servants who left and never spoke of why. A first wife who died under mysterious circumstances. People say many things. Lord Ashford had finally met her eyes, and she'd seen nothing there. No guilt, no hesitation, just calculation. What people don't say is that he's obscenely wealthy and willing to clear my debts entirely. You leave in 3 days. She'd tried to flee that night, packed a small bag, crept toward the servants' entrance. But her father had anticipated her desperation. 2 footmen caught her before she reached the garden gate. Lord Ashford hadn't punished her with words or blows. He'd simply looked at her with tired contempt and said, Your mother tried to run once, too. It's in your blood, this weakness. But you'll learn what she learned. There's nowhere to go. Her mother had died when Elowyn was 4. A fever, they'd said. But sometimes Elowyn wondered if Isadora Ashford had simply stopped fighting. Now the carriage slowed, and through the window, Thornwood Manor emerged from the mist like a creature rising from dark water. She'd imagined decay, neglect. Instead, the manor stood proud and severe. Black stone towers framed by evergreen hedges pruned with military precision. Torches flickered along the main drive despite the early afternoon hour. The estate wasn't neglected. It was immaculate, controlled. That frightened her more than ruin would have. A tall woman with steel-colored hair met her at the entrance. Miss Ashford, I am Mrs. Brennan. His Grace will receive you in the library. Follow me. The manor's interior swallowed sound. High ceilings disappeared into shadows, and thick carpets muffled footsteps until Elowyn felt like a ghost drifting through someone else's dream. Mrs. Brennan stopped before a carved oak door. A word of advice. His Grace values honesty. Do not condescend. Do not perform pity. He perceives more than most, even without sight. Then she was alone. The library was vast and warm, flames crackling in a massive fireplace. And there, in a leather chair facing the fire, sat the man who had purchased her. Theron Valamont, Duke of Thornwood, did not turn at her entrance. His dark hair curled at his collar. His profile was sharp, angular, handsome in a way that seemed almost accidental. A thin scar traced from his left temple to his cheekbone. His eyes were closed. You're standing 6 feet from the door, he said, his voice low and calm. Your breathing is elevated. Your perfume is lavender and faded roses. You didn't sleep last night. I can hear the exhaustion in how you hold yourself. And you're terrified. Which is sensible. Elowyn's mouth went dry. How did you— Sit down, Miss Ashford. We have much to discuss. She moved to the chair across from him, lowering herself onto velvet cushions. For a long moment, the Duke said nothing. The fire crackled. Wind howled against the windows. Then he spoke again, and the words stopped her heart. I know why your father sold you to me, Elowin. I know about the debts, the real ones, not the gambling story he tells society. His eyes opened, and she gasped. They were pale gray, almost silver, clouded with blindness but somehow piercing. I know what Aldrich Ashford has been hiding for 18 years. And so, I suspect, do you? Elowin couldn't breathe. Now, the blind Duke said quietly, let's discuss what we're going to do about it. I don't know what you mean, she whispered. Don't. The Duke's voice sharpened. I told you. I value honesty. I didn't pay 30,000 sovereigns for a wife who lies in our first conversation. Elowin's hands clenched. 18 years of half-heard whispers, of questions deflected, of knowing something was wrong without ever naming it. My father's debts, she said slowly. You said they weren't from gambling. Your father doesn't gamble. He's far too controlled. The Duke's fingers traced the arm of his chair. His debts are bribes, to magistrates, physicians, members of parliament. He's been paying them for nearly 2 decades. Bribes for what? The Duke turned his face toward her fully. Those clouded eyes held hers with uncanny precision. To keep secret the truth about your mother's death. The room tilted. My mother died of fever. I was 4. You remember what you were told. Isadora Ashford didn't die of fever. She was poisoned. No. Arsenic, administered over several weeks. Slow enough to look like wasting illness. Fast enough to ensure she couldn't escape again. His voice remained clinical. Your father killed her, and he's been paying to keep that secret ever since. Elowin couldn't speak. You don't have to believe me yet. The Duke produced a leather folder. These are copies of the physician's original notes, the ones he was paid to destroy. Testimony from your mother's lady's maid. Letters your mother wrote to her sister begging for help. Elowin took the folder with numb fingers. Why? She asked. We've never met. Why would you care about my mother? Something shifted in the Duke's expression, a crack in the marble. Because Isadora Ashford wasn't the only person your father destroyed. She was simply the first. Elowin waited. Your father and mine were business partners. When my father discovered Lord Ashford's financial crimes, he threatened exposure. The Duke paused. 3 weeks later, my father fell from his horse during a hunt. A tragic accident, they said. He died from his injuries. I was 15. You think my father... I know he arranged it. 4 years later, when I began asking questions, I was attacked on a road. Beaten. Left for dead. His jaw tightened. I survived. My sight didn't. The folder felt impossibly heavy in Elowin's hands. Your father has been killing and bribing his way out of consequences for decades, the Duke continued. I've spent 15 years gathering evidence to stop him. Then why marry me? If you want to destroy my father, I'm just his daughter. You're his heir. When he dies, everything he owns, including the hidden documents, the evidence I can't reach, passes to you. Or more specifically, to your husband. The calculation became clear. Coldly, horribly clear. You bought me to get to him. I acquired you to end him. The Duke's tone held no apology. But I'm offering you something no one else will. The truth. And when he falls, you'll be protected. Beyond anyone's reach. And if I refuse? Then I'll pay for your journey elsewhere and leave you to your fate. But know this. The moment you surface anywhere, your father will wonder what you know. What you might say. His voice dropped. He's killed to protect his secrets before. The fire crackled. Elowin thought of her mother's portrait, those painted eyes that had watched her grow up in a house built on murder. If I agree, she said slowly, I have conditions. The Duke's eyebrow rose. You're in no position to negotiate. Then send me back. The word surprised them both. You need me. My inheritance, my access. That makes me valuable. I won't be used without a say in how. Silence stretched between them. Then, impossibly, the Duke smiled. Small, barely a curve of his lips. What are your terms? First, the truth. All of it. Not fragments you dole out when convenient. Agreed. Second, I'm not a prisoner. Freedom to move, to think, to make decisions. You'll consult me on strategy, not command me. You'll have as much freedom as security allows. Third, when this is over, I walk away if I choose. This marriage is strategic. If it no longer serves us both, I won't be trapped. The Duke was quiet for a long moment. Agreed. Truth. Consultation. Freedom when this ends. He rose, crossing to her with surprising confidence. Anything else? One more thing. When we expose him, the world will know what he did to my mother. She deserves justice. Her voice hardened. He stole her voice. I want to give it back. He extended his hand. Then we have an agreement. Welcome to Thornwood. She took his hand. His grip was warm, calloused, unexpectedly steadying. One question, she said, not letting go. You've spent 15 years planning this. Why specifically me? Because I've followed your situation for years, Elowen, and you're the only person in that house who ever looked at your father and sensed the truth, even when you couldn't name it. His voice dropped. You're not his legacy. You're his undoing. He released her hand. Rest tonight. Tomorrow, your education begins. The next 3 weeks reshaped Elowen from the inside out. Her rooms were in the East Tower, a suite that would have seemed luxurious if it didn't feel so much like a gilded cage. But each morning she met with the Duke in his study, and the cage began to feel like an armory. She read aloud from files detailing her father's crimes. The scope was staggering. Lord Aldrich Ashford hadn't merely killed his wife and business partner. He'd built an empire on bodies. A merchant who'd discovered discrepancies, dead in a warehouse fire. A solicitor who'd asked too many questions, drowned in the Thames. A former mistress who'd threatened to reveal secrets, vanished entirely. How many? Elowen asked one morning, her voice hollow. Confirmed? 7. The Duke's jaw was tight. Suspected? At least a dozen more. But you've gathered enough to destroy him. Almost enough. There's one piece missing. The original ledgers where he recorded everything. Payments, names, dates. He leaned forward. Those ledgers are hidden somewhere only he can access. We need to force his hand. Make him desperate enough to retrieve them. Elowen learned more than just her father's sins. She learned Theron's world. He'd been blinded at 19, an attack he now believed her father had arranged. But blindness had sharpened everything else. I hear heartbeats, breathing patterns, he explained one evening. I sense movement through changes in air pressure. I can tell when someone is lying by the tension in their voice. And can you tell if I'm lying? You haven't lied to me yet. Though you've omitted things. You're frightened of this marriage. Not of me, but of what it represents. Despite herself, she began to respect him. His mind was a weapon honed by years of operating in darkness, and beneath the cold strategy, she glimpsed grief that mirrored her own. The wedding took place on a gray Thursday. No guests, no celebration, just Elowen, Theron, Mrs. Brennan as witness, and a minister who seemed uncomfortable. The Duke spoke his vows in a steady voice. His ring slid onto her finger, white gold set with a single black pearl. It was my mother's, he said quietly. She died when I was 23. In her sleep, they said. But I think she simply stopped wanting to live in a world where her husband's killer walked free. When the minister pronounced them married, there was no kiss, just a formal handshake. That night, a knock came at her door. The Duke stood in the hallway. Your father has been invited to a house party at Ashworth Estate in 6 weeks. Lord and Lady Pemberton are hosting. We'll be attending. Elowin's stomach dropped. He'll see me. He'll know I'm your wife. That's the point. The Duke's smile was thin and sharp. We're going to make him afraid. And frightened men make mistakes. 4 weeks into her marriage, Elowin faced her first public trial. Lady Whitmore came to call. The Dowager Countess was 73, sharp as broken glass, and one of society's most formidable gossips. She'll test you, the Duke warned. Every word, every gesture. She wants to know why I married suddenly. What should I tell her? The truth, wrapped in misdirection. We married quickly because I'd admired you from a distance. Your father's difficulties made a swift arrangement advantageous. All technically true. Lady Whitmore arrived at 11, sweeping into the drawing room in expensive perfume and barely concealed curiosity. So you're the mysterious bride, she said. I must confess, I was surprised. Theron has avoided marriage for so long. Perhaps he was waiting for the right opportunity, Elowin replied, pouring tea with hands she forced steady. Opportunity. Interesting word choice. Most brides say love. Love is a luxury not everyone can afford. I prefer honesty. Something flickered in the old woman's eyes, grudging respect. Your father is Lord Ashford, is he not? I knew him years ago. Cold man. And your mother, Isadora, died young. There were whispers at the time about the circumstances. Elowin's grip tightened. Not everyone's memory is short, Lady Whitmore. The silence was heavy with implication. Then Lady Whitmore smiled, genuinely. You're cleverer than you look. Good. She rose. I'll tell people you're charming but private, that the marriage seems genuine enough. Why would you help us? Because I liked your mother. And because I've never liked Aldrich Ashford. She paused at the door. Your father has enemies he doesn't know about. People with long memories. If you're planning something, you may find more allies than you expect. That evening, the Duke listened to Elowin's account without interrupting. She knows something, he said, about your mother's death. Let her come to us. She's testing whether we're worth allying with. His hand found her shoulder. A brief touch. 2 more weeks until the Pemberton party. 2 weeks until your father sees what you've become. The nightmare came without warning. Elowin was 4 again, standing in her mother's doorway. Isadora lay pale as moonlight, eyes open but unseeing. Mama? Wake up. But Mama didn't wake, and somewhere behind her, footsteps approached, heavy, deliberate. Elowin screamed herself awake. A knock. Elowin, I heard you scream. The door opened. Theron moved toward her with uncanny precision, sitting carefully on the bed's edge. Nightmare, she managed. About my mother. He said nothing, but he waited, and the silence felt like permission to fall apart. I was there when she died. I don't remember clearly, but I dream it. Calling for her. Her voice cracked. She didn't answer. You were a child. There was nothing you could have done. Theron's hand found hers, warm, an anchor. After my father died, he said quietly, I dreamed of the attack for years, the blows I couldn't see coming, waking up blind and alone. The dreams faded when I found purpose. Vengeance gave me something to focus on. Is that why you've spent 15 years on this? Partly, but also because justice matters. Every life he's stolen deserves acknowledgement. Elowin looked at their joined hands. You could have pursued this alone. I needed someone who understood. Someone who'd lost what I lost. His voice dropped. Perhaps I needed to stop being alone. For a long moment they sat in silence. Then Elowin leaned forward and rested her head against his shoulder. He stiffened. Then, slowly, his arm came around her. They stayed like that until dawn crept through the windows. Thank you, she whispered, for seeing me. Not as a weapon or a means to an end. His hand cupped her cheek, tentative, questioning. "You're more than useful to me, Elowen. I need you to know that." Something had shifted between them, something that felt dangerously like hope. Ashworth Estate rose from rolling hills like a crown of golden stone. Carriages lined the drive, and elegantly dressed guests strolled the grounds. Elowen's pulse jumped as their carriage slowed. "Focus on your breathing," Theron said quietly. "Easy for you to say. No, I'm about to face the man who killed my father and blinded me." His voice was calm. "We both have ghosts here. We face them together." Lord and Lady Pemberton waited in the grand foyer. Lady Pemberton was plump with kind eyes. Her husband was thin and shrewd. "Your Grace, what an honor!" Lady Pemberton curtsied. "And this must be the new Duchess." "Your home is magnificent," Elowen said, drawing on every lesson. "You must meet everyone. The drawing room is buzzing with curiosity." And there, near the fireplace, stood her father. Lord Aldrich Ashford looked exactly as she remembered, tall, silver-haired, and impeccable. His face was a mask of pleasant neutrality. Then his eyes found hers. The mask cracked. Shock, confusion, calculation, fear, fury, all flashing across his features before the mask slammed back. He excused himself from his conversation and moved toward her. Theron's hand found the small of her back. "Steady." Lord Ashford reached them, his smile perfectly calibrated. "Elowen, what a surprise." "Father," she curtsied. "Allow me to present my husband, the Duke of Thornwood." Her father's gaze shifted to Theron. Recognition flickered. "Your Grace, I don't believe we've been formally introduced, though I knew your father. Briefly." "Yes," Theron replied, pleasant and cold. "Briefly." The silence stretched taut. "I wasn't aware my daughter had married," Lord Ashford continued. "The announcement must have escaped my notice. It was private. Given our courtship, discretion seemed prudent." Theron smiled without warmth. "I'm sure you understand the value of discretion, Lord Ashford." Another flicker. Doubt. Suspicion. "We should speak privately, daughter," her father said. "Family matters." "I'd be delighted. Perhaps tomorrow? Tonight my husband requires my attention." She took Theron's arm. "Lovely to see you." She walked away without looking back, her father's gaze burning into her spine. The first move had been made. After dinner, Elowen slipped into the library, needing a moment away from watching eyes. "You've done well tonight." She spun. Her father stood in the doorway. "Following me?" Concerned. He stepped inside, closing the door. "You disappeared without a word. Married a stranger. I've been worried." "You didn't seem worried when you sold me." Lord Ashford's expression tightened. "What have you told him? About our affairs?" Nothing he didn't already know. Something dangerous flickered in his eyes. "And what exactly does he know?" "Ask him yourself." Her father grabbed her arm, firm enough to control. "Don't play games. Thornwood is not a man to trust. His father and I had disagreements." "I'm aware." "Did he tell you he blames me for that hunting accident? He's spent years spinning conspiracies. Are they conspiracies?" The question hung between them. Lord Ashford released her arm. "I see. He's turned you against me. Convinced you I'm a monster." "I know about Mother." The words stopped him cold. "I know how she really died. The arsenic. The physicians you paid. The letters she wrote begging for help." Lord Ashford's face drained of color. "Where did you— Does it matter?" She stepped toward him, and for the first time he stepped back. "You killed her. You killed his father. And the Duke has evidence to prove it." "Evidence can be disputed. Witnesses discredited." Her father's voice turned cold. "You think you're safe because you're a duchess? I've buried more dangerous enemies than a blind man and his naive bride." The door opened. Theron stood in the threshold. Is there a problem? Lord Ashford adjusted his cuffs. Just a family conversation. Then you won't mind if I join. My wife and I keep no secrets. Lord Ashford looked between them. This isn't over, he said quietly. No, Theron agreed. It's just beginning. Elowyn couldn't sleep. She paced her guest chamber until a soft knock came. It's Theron. She opened the door. He was fully dressed despite the late hour. Lady Whitmore arrived late, he said. She has information. Letters she wrote to her sister describing suspicions about your mother's death. Combined with the physician's notes, your mother's letters, it's enough to destroy his reputation. When does she want to meet? Tomorrow. The ladies' tea. Theron's hand found her shoulder. But there's something else. Your father's solicitor arrived at your family estate 3 days ago. He's been removing documents, destroying records. The ledgers. If they exist, they won't for long. We're running out of time. We need to force his hand. Make him panic. That's what tomorrow is for. Lady Whitmore will spread her story. Whispers will reach your father. He'll realize the net is closing. And if he threatens me again, he will. Cornered animals are dangerous. Theron's grip tightened. If something happened to you... He stopped himself. If something happened to me, what? Silence. Then his hand cupped her face, gentle despite the tension in his body. When I learned who you were, what you'd survived, I thought you were useful, a means to an end. His thumb brushed her cheekbone. But somewhere in these weeks, you became necessary. Necessary for revenge? Necessary for me. His voice cracked slightly. I've spent 15 years alone, focused on destruction. Then you arrived, and suddenly destruction wasn't enough. I wanted to build something. Theron, I know this wasn't supposed to be real, but when your father grabbed your arm, I wanted to kill him. Not for my father. For you. She reached up, touching his face. His eyes closed. I stopped being afraid of you weeks ago, she whispered. Now I'm afraid of how much I need you. He kissed her. Desperate. Hungry. The release of weeks of tension, his hands in her hair, hers gripping his shoulders. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers. Whatever happens tomorrow, you're not expendable. You never were. We finish this together. Or not at all. He kissed her forehead. Get some rest. Tomorrow, we end this. The afternoon tea was held in Ashworth's conservatory. 40 guests gathered among ferns and flowers. Elowyn stood beside Lady Whitmore, watching her father across the room. Ready? Lady Whitmore murmured. As I'll ever be. Lady Whitmore raised her voice. Lady Pemberton, I was just telling the Duchess about my visit to Ashford Manor years ago. Such memories. Conversations quieted. I was quite close with the late Lady Ashford. Isadora. Lady Whitmore sighed dramatically. Such a tragedy. She was so young, so vibrant. And then suddenly, wasting illness, they said. But I always wondered. Lord Ashford set down his teacup with a sharp click. Wondered what? Lady Pemberton asked. I was visiting the week before she died. Isadora seemed perfectly healthy. She told me troubling things about discoveries she'd made. That's quite enough. Lord Ashford's voice cut across the room. Speculation about my late wife is inappropriate. Is it speculation? I have letters, Lord Ashford. Letters Isadora wrote describing her fears. The room went silent. Those letters are private correspondence. I have the physician's original notes. Elowyn stepped forward. They document symptoms inconsistent with natural illness. They suggest poisoning. Every eye turned to her. My own daughter. Lord Ashford laughed desperately. Clearly, her husband has poisoned her mind. A grudge based on murder, Theron said, appearing at Elowyn's side. Your murder of my father. Your murder of Isadora Ashford. Your systematic elimination of anyone who threatened your secrets. You're blind, in more ways than one. You have no evidence. We have witnesses, servants from your household, solicitors who handled payments, a paper trail leading directly to you. Lies. Then explain the investments that don't exist, Elowen said. The properties with no deeds on record. The 7 people connected to your dealings who died suspiciously. She stepped closer. Explain my mother, father. Lord Ashford lunged toward her. Theron moved faster. His cane swept up, deflecting the arm. In one fluid motion, he positioned himself between Elowen and her father. Touch her again, Theron said quietly, and I will end you here. Lord Ashford looked around, at horrified faces, whispered conversations, guests edging away. This is a conspiracy. Lord Ashford. Lord Pemberton stepped forward, expression cold. I think you should leave, immediately. On the word of a blind man. On the word of a countess, a duchess, and documented evidence. Pemberton gestured to his footmen. Escort Lord Ashford to his carriage. As the footman moved forward, Lord Ashford's composure shattered. You'll regret this. I have powerful friends. You have nothing, Elowen said clearly. Your friends are distancing themselves. Your secrets are coming to light. She stepped forward until she stood directly before him. You killed my mother. You sold me like cattle. You thought you were untouchable. Her voice dropped to a whisper. You were wrong. Lord Ashford's face twisted with hatred. But as he was dragged from the room, she saw something else. Fear. The doors closed behind him. Lady Whitmore lifted her teacup. Well, that was bracing. More tea? Through it all, Theron's hand never left her waist. You did it, he murmured. We did it. She leaned into him. Is it over? The public part. Trials and formal charges will take time, but he's finished. Elowen closed her eyes. Her mother would finally have justice. That evening, Elowen found Theron in their guest suite, standing at the window. I'm trying to believe it's real, she said. For so long, he was untouchable. Now he's just a frightened man who will spend his remaining years answering for his crimes. Tears pricked her eyes. She'd held them back all day. Theron pulled her close, holding her as she cried. He said nothing, simply wrapped his arms around her. When the tears subsided, she looked up at him. Thank you. For believing me. For giving me weapons to fight back. You always had the weapons. You just needed someone to show you where they were. His hands cupped her face. I love you, she said. The words came out before she could stop them. She felt him still. I know it's not what we agreed, she continued quickly. This was supposed to be strategy. Elowen. But I can't pretend anymore. These weeks with you, watching you, learning you, I fell in love with a man who perceives more than anyone with sight ever could. He kissed her, deep and thorough. When he finally pulled away, both breathless, I love you, he said roughly. I've loved you since you negotiated terms while standing in my library, surrounded by evidence of your father's crimes, still brave enough to make demands. That was stubbornness? With you, they're the same thing. He kissed her forehead. I didn't expect you. I planned for a weapon and found a partner. She twisted the black pearl ring on her finger, his mother's ring. What do we do now? We go home, build a life together, make sure your father faces justice. Together, always together. 6 months later, spring had come to Thornwood Manor. Elowen stood on the terrace watching daffodils and tulips paint the grounds in gold and crimson. The trial had concluded 3 weeks ago. Lord Aldrich Ashford, guilty of 2 counts of murder, 7 counts of fraud. He would spend his remaining years in prison. The families he'd defrauded had been compensated. The servants who'd witnessed his crimes had testified freely. And Isadora Ashford's grave bore a new headstone. Beloved mother. Silence too soon. Never forgotten. You're thinking again. Alawan smiled as Theron joined her, his cane tapping the stones. I'm thinking about how different everything looks. He pulled her close, arms wrapping around her from behind. The Thornwood Women's Fund received 3 more applications this week, he said. Mrs. Brennan says we'll need to expand the East Wing. Then we'll expand it. The fund had been established 2 months ago. Resources for women escaping dangerous circumstances. Already, a dozen had been helped. You're going to bankrupt me with philanthropy. You can afford it. She kissed his jaw. What's the point of being a duchess if I can't help people? His hand spread across her stomach, a gesture that had become habit in recent weeks. Have you decided on names? He asked. If it's a girl, Isadora. And a boy? Edmund. Your father's name. His breath caught. You remembered. Of course I remembered. She turned in his arms, facing him. How did I deserve you? You didn't. Neither did I. She smiled. We simply found each other and were both stubborn enough to hold on. They stood together in spring sunshine, the Duke who perceived without sight, and the Duchess who'd risen from ashes. Behind them, Thornwood Manor hummed with life. The Women's Fund flourished. Her mother's story was told. Justice had been served. She'd been sold to marry a blind duke. He'd spoken secrets that shattered everything she thought she knew. And together, they'd built something neither could have created alone: justice, love, and a legacy worth leaving. Thank you for staying until the very end. If this story touched something in you, the fight for truth, the power of being seen, the strength it takes to transform, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment with your favorite moment and where you're listening from. If you're ready for another story where love rises from the ashes, subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the next chapter. You're the reason these stories exist. Thank you for being here, for listening, for believing that even in the darkest moments, love can find a way.